Oh, the lanterns are coming together. Oh, so cute. Oh, we have to. Like that. And if you haven't already, and watch the sky. Right, so I think we'll wrap up and let our speakers take over. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Hand it over.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. I hope all your wishes will come true. And yeah, let's go on to the lightning talks. So today we have 3 speakers. We have Desiree, Rachel, and Chris. And our first speaker will be Desiree. Go ahead.
Thanks, Shen. Hello, everybody. Nice to see everyone here. There's so many people. I think there's 80 over people. Before I start, let me just share my screen. Just give a shout out if you can't actually see it. Oops, the lanterns still. So okay. Yeah, okay. All right. So so my name is Desiree, and today I will be sharing with you about my transition from an animator to a graphic and then a UX designer. Okay, so a short introduction about who I am. I am working as a product designer for Bank of Singapore, which is the private banking arm of OCBC. And the key difference between a private client and a plebeian like myself is that you can only open a bank account with $3 million and above. So I'm part of the team that is actually revamping this app experience for the bank's private clients. And before UX actually changed my career, I was a film and animation graduate that worked for 7 years as a graphic designer across various industries. I know many of you here come from different backgrounds or maybe interested in switching to UX as a career, or maybe even joining your first UX job soon. So congrats if you are. And in the next 10 minutes, I will be sharing 5 things that I learned about transitioning. It's kind of much like getting into a relationship, but just take whatever I say next with a pinch of salt because it's not a prescription. Yeah. Okay. So first phase, the honeymoon phase. When my career started, I wasn't always a designer. I chose my degree for a very stupid reason that I believe animators actually earn a lot more than graphic designers. Okay, that's very controversial, I know, but of course I was very wrong. And when I graduated from Monash Uni in Melbourne, I was 20 years old and I interned in this small animation startup doing tweening for Wings Club. I don't know if anyone of you know that. It's an animated cartoon. And tweening actually basically means drawing the in-between frames between each keyframe. And I did that on a Wacom tablet. So, days were long, nights were longer, and then some of them were spent on an airbed, waiting for screens to render. And I kind of romanticized the idea that I was this like starving artist, struggling to make a place in the world. Thumbs up if you agree. So for 3 months, I barely saw my friends or daylight. And to supplement my low pay, I sold wine and part-time in a HR agency selling people jobs. I absolutely hated it. Okay, and along the way, I dropped my dreams of joining Pixar. And I started designing personal name cards for friends who were graduating. And that hobby turned into designing logos and branding, which kind of landed me a graphic design job in an advertising agency. So what did I take away from this? It's that it's okay not to commit to whatever you graduated with. And I was super happy, I negotiated my first pay to 2K. And I thought it was really big shit, but little did I know that UXers actually get a starting pay of 4.5K and upwards. But more on that later. Okay, so part 2, going steady. And here is where I first experienced many firsts in a transition to a graphic designer. It was my first time being held responsible for print or copy mistakes, training the interns, even though I was very new myself, building relationships with printers so that we could get cheaper rates. I learned how to create motion graphics for ad videos, and all this time on top of my design work. And it's the first time also I walked all 3 terminals of Changi Airport, just learning about eye tracking technology and how it was used to measure footfall and ad placement. So what did I take away from this experience? Is that curiosity didn't kill the cat. And anything out of your scope is actually a life lesson. So the purist in me felt very resentful for getting asked to do all these like marketing or ops stuff. But this was the budding framework for stakeholder management that I would actually use later in my career. Okay, so moving on to the third part, meeting family. Over the next 4 years, the introvert within me slowly rebranded to an extrovert when I started designing for F&B. In this time, I worked on posters, menus, photo shoots, social media posts, event decor, space planning. So I said yes to everything, basically, and spent every moment being a hipster in Singapore's design community. I performed gigs, I crochet for flea market, at substation, I make coffee art, I did, cocktails at night. And at this point in time, I was super convinced, I would open my own design studio just to cater to the F&B industry. That dream rose, and then a year later it died as quickly as it came. But the friends stayed, which were very valuable. And during this time, the company was also looking for an agency to create websites for a couple of restaurants. So I was like, why not let me do it? So I used Illustrator and WordPress to create websites for a cafe and a gin bar. And suddenly I was the in-house designer for, all these websites and things like that. So when I found a new skill, I thought, okay, this is it, my life is set. And my takeaway from here is that you should actually make time outside of work to diversify your skills with experiences. You can also offer to design for nonprofits just to practice. I found Zero Waste SG, which is an eco nonprofit that I believed in. And then I volunteered to design their website as well. And I still do. Yeah. So the fourth takeaway, this part is the rocky patch. So, good things don't last forever. And when the company came under new management, I quit basically, and I left and joined a classical music company. No other reason for this. I just thought, hey, I play piano, so maybe this works. Yeah. So they offered a chance at rebranding and for me to guide a new designer. And I threw myself into learning how to design an e-commerce website, and for music books and string instruments of all things. And it was, some of them cost up to 100K. So I got really paranoid. I started talking to everybody who came into the shop. Music teachers, how they bought books for their students. Luthiers, how do you want to showcase every detail in a violin bow? And parents, especially, what makes the best violin, cello, viola for your kid. And I now realized that this was my intro to UX research. So after a year, right, there was this pivotal moment where an ex-colleague WhatsApped me and she was like, hey, you want to do UX? And I'm like, huh, what's that? Is it design? And then my interest was piqued. So if there's anything I learned over the past few jobs, interviews are the best introduction to an industry. Just talk to people, it's free and, you might get a job out of it. So I sat down with an Excel sheet with all these columns, company, job title, location, applied or rejected. And over 2 months, I applied to at least 40 different companies. I did 30 over interviews and I got like 4 final offers. So there was plenty of rejection. And my portfolio consisted of 2 PDFs. Okay, this one's not showing up, I don't know why, but that's my one print and one web. So the reason I separated them was because interviewers really don't have a lot of time for attention during an interview. The first interview, I was so nervous that they asked me, this is your first, isn't it? You don't seem very prepared. And I was like, oh my God. So as each interview passed, imposter syndrome built, and I practiced faking it till I made it. So I showed my web stuff first, and then I talked through my design process. And then I highlighted my social media, digital stuff. And then only if there was time, I will show them my print work. So it kind of paid off. And I was over the moon when I got accepted as a UX designer into a bank. Here is the exact moment I was WhatsApping my friend and I found out my pay got doubled. Fun fact, I was earning 2.9K, about 3.1 or 2K. And this was 7 years into my career. And my first UX job, I got 4.5K. So my takeaway from here, I don't have anything in English, but xian ku hou tian for those who know. First bitter, sweet after. It's never easy, but just trust in the process. And when the interviewer asks you, do you know Sketch or Figma? And I'm like, yes, of course. That I just Google like a mad woman after that in silence, but you'll be fine. Yeah. So the last part of this, because I want to talk about what happens when you join UX. It's a brand new thing. My mind was blown with Scrum teams, Agile versus Waterfall, two diamond design process, a lot of other buzzwords. So who actually helped me through was the UX researchers and business analysts, and I grew quite close to them as they were often a source of truth to return to, and I picked up habits of like practicing what they preached. And I was lucky enough to travel extensively to like Hong Kong, China, Taiwan to conduct user testing and run workshops. And I never did this before, all while researching deeply into, what's a bank, what's investing, what's FX trading, like who knows all this. And just coming from a background of mostly being a design team of one, I appreciated having other designers sounding boards. Okay, I don't think you can see here, there's a picture of my team. Some of them were also in the transition journey. There was no shortage of UX courses and conventions that I could attend. And here's where I realized the true value of having a team or a company that can invest in your career. So 2 years later, I sought out a new industry to keep things fresh and just going through the interview process again. But as a UX designer, definitely felt imposter syndrome again, but I pushed through with the same Excel sheet process. And I landed myself in a consulting firm that taught me about elevator pitch decks, projecting your voice, running full design projects within 6 weeks. So doors of opportunities, which is suddenly flying open at an insane rate. And up until I got headhunted for my last interview at Bank of Singapore, I was still suffering from imposter syndrome, but I just spoke through of my experience, and it's been like 5 months now. And through my awesome colleague, Jonathan, who I think is here today somewhere, I've had the happy chance to actually join this community and share my transition experience with everybody here. So my last takeaway from this is just give back and learn from the UX community whenever you can, so that 20-year-old purist designer is still here. But I definitely didn't expect where I expect to be here today. And there are many moments also where I felt like I sold out as well. But I will leave you with this quote, and that is, what are you protecting yourself from? And will you sell your life for fierce price? So, basically your career is around 50 years at most. What will you achieve in this time? Well, thank you everyone for being present, and I wish you all a great night.
Thank you so much for your talk. It was really good to hear your experiences and how you got into UX. Everyone, if you have any questions, we do have a Q&A at the end. Chloe has shared a link in the chat where you can submit your questions, so please do that. And now we'll move on to the next speaker, Rachel. Go ahead.
Hey guys, okay, just let me share my screen, okay? Okay. Are you guys looking at my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so I guess for me today, I'm going to be sharing about my journey into my journey as from being an educator to a designer. And let me just, okay, so this is me. This is a very flattering photo of me. And I'm currently working as a product designer at Lendlease, and I work mainly on dashboards, and I'm also the design system lead. However, I've only been in this role for about one-ish year or so now. So honestly, I'm still like a junior. See this baby emoji. So about me, I started my journey into UX not knowing that this was my end goal, honestly. At first I started teaching, then I left MOE trying to figure out how to build my own startup idea. I applied to a startup incubator, I got rejected. And I decided to pick up tech skills and the way I did it was to join General Assembly. So the idea was to get myself some work experience in tech so that I could become more like a more viable founder. And over 100-ish job applications, 2 replied. And out of those 2 replies, I joined a startup as their first solo designer, for my first role. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you guys not so much about my journey into UX, but more about the similarities I noticed between design and education. So one of the first few similarities, and I apologize if there's an airplane noise in my background, let me know, I'll stop. Okay. Similarities. First thing is 60% of your time is in meetings / classes. If you're a designer and you feel like I never have time to design because every single bit of my free time is in meetings, you have pretty much experienced the life of a teacher too. You also have 12-hour workdays. In the design, I work 7:30, I'll take a break and maybe I'll work all the way till late at night. I am the sad soul in Discord that asks on the water cooler chat, like, can someone hang out with me at night? The teacher's role is 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. The school shuts at 7 p.m. exactly. And the next thing is that the final thing is that you're always short on manpower. I can't seem to go back. Sorry, guys. Yeah, we were always short on manpower. So for designers, right, I've always felt like we were always asking our managers, like, can we have one more headcount? Can we have one more headcount? And the same thing for teachers, we are always saying that, can I have more people in my CTA? Can I have more people in my team? There's never enough people, but there's so much work. Okay, the next thing that's also very similar about education is this idea of like creating some sort of a space, right, for your learner or / user to do stuff. So one of the things, right, is that I would always create like these brackets here so that the students will fill out their register numbers. I will also always include a date field so they'll fill stuff up. I would scaffold the way they think using these sort of graphic organizers, it's called. And similarly in UX, right, you always see something like this, like a prompting text and all that. And one thing that I always notice is like, I'm always asking the same kind of questions. Do my users have enough information to do the task? Do my learners have enough information to do the task? Is there information overload? How do I slowly load the information? And what is the pace that is best for my learner / user? So a lot of the processes are very similar. And I would say that most of these processes are kind of anchored in the same thing, which kind of requires you to empathize with your user. You also empathize with your learner. Yeah, but I would say that between the two roles that I've in, the way UX builds empathy for the user and the way in teaching, with the way we build empathy for the learner is completely different. Yeah. So another thing that I noticed is this is a screenshot of a real thing. I'm very happy that it happened just like this week so that I could put this in my slides. But I was talking to my colleague and she said this is something really funny about me. Even when you're getting roasted in feedbacks, you're still able to smile. And one of my friends, she said that something really, she's also a UX designer. She said that like you grow in the chao ta, which means the burn, right? So when you get like roasted, that's how you learn. And that's another thing I realized that designers and educators do very similarly, is that you learn from feedback and you also learn how to be discerning about feedback, right? You don't take everything, right? You make a decision and take ownership. Yeah. Okay. The other thing is also this big picture, the small picture thing. So for teachers, you go from curriculum to syllabus, to scheme of work to lessons. And for UX, right, you will go from product roadmaps to epics to user stories to features. And sometimes you need to think about your features and whether it fits with the product roadmap. Or maybe sometimes you need to see whether your user stories, right, do they fit in this epic? And similarly, we would also be doing the same thing. Do our lessons work with the syllabus? Does it work with the overall curriculum plan? And these are the kind of things that this is another thing that was kind of easy for me to adapt to. Like I was able to think about it this way very clearly and very easily. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to talk about the differences now. I'm sure there are plenty, but this is the first one. Imposter syndrome. I'm going to say there's something quite controversial here, but the education imposter syndrome was way higher, and it really helped me deal with the imposter syndrome in UX. So when I was a teacher, I was constantly afraid that, like, because you see, the thing about being a teacher is that you only have that set amount of time with them. And if you're not perfect, right, you kind of fail them in a sense. You're not giving your best, you're not serving them the best. And therefore, did you allow them to reach their best self if you weren't the best teacher? And that perfection always kind of drove me a bit insane. But when it comes to UX, somehow I was always able to, like, okay, even if it's not perfect now, there's always the next release. And then my design lead always says done is better than perfect. So it helps me a lot. And even though I know I'm an imposter, because like I'm a career switcher. I'm only like 1 year-ish in this job. You know, I'm definitely not as knowledgeable as many of the people out there, but I'm still learning and I'm happy to keep learning, you know. Okay, and the other thing is so it's the same logic, right? In education, right, it was never make a mistake. In UX, it was try, fail, iterate again. Emphasis on failure. So you always try to keep the status quo and respect the hierarchy in teaching. But in UX, it's always about innovation. You want a flat hierarchy, and this is key to the agile framework. And there's good and bad to it, right? Like I make it sound like it's such a nice and wonderful thing in UX, but the truth is, right, team members are expected to take ownership. You take responsibility, and this is risky. So for example, if let's say I took a risk, right? Maybe I'm not as thorough with my like going through the user research insights, and maybe I make a bad call with the design. That's fully on me. My design lead is not going to be like, you know, defending us on a design team level. I would take ownership for my mistake. I have to own up. But like in education, right? If I really made a mistake, and I have made many mistakes, okay, I kind of have a HOD to back me up. And sometimes the HOD will kind of cover my mistakes for me, which is like, was kind of safe, but you don't really grow in safety, I think sometimes. You must be willing to take on the risk. And that's where you feel like, you know, you own the project and you're responsible and you feel motivated. Okay, so here's what I'm going to talk about, what I like about UX. People have chill vibes. People, I would say, like someone described to me that people in UX have very engineer vibes, are very chill. Sometimes they are into anime and no one is really judging you for that. And you also have flexible working hours. I don't have to be ready at 7:30 a.m. to say the pledge anymore. There's no dress code. I don't have to look a certain way for my job. And there's no values in action, right? So my commitment to the job is not questioned if I don't share the same values as the organization. For example, like one time I had a bit of a wardrobe malfunction in school, and I have a tattoo on my back, right? And it kind of like showed a bit of the tattoo, just a tip, right? And like I got called into the principal's office and officially reprimanded. But yeah. Okay, so the next thing is what I dislike about UX is this, and I guess people that are into that are interested in transitioning into UX, you need to consider that there's also the need to, there's one thing that I really dislike is the need to constantly posture. So people are very quick to invalidate the designer if you don't know domain specific knowledge. So like sometimes it doesn't feel like I can say like, hey guys, I have no clue what I'm doing. Sometimes I really have to like posture so that I can convince the stakeholders. And I find, I'm not sure whether this is my experience, but I find this very like toxic, and it kind of blocks that innovation because you need to kind of work together to put all your brains together to get like really good product out. I feel cross-functional collaboration is the key. And also there's always this need to market yourself just to keep out of the crowd. So I'd like to thank Friends of Figma for the extremely helpful LinkedIn post. You helped me with my career, but not everybody gets this opportunity all the time, you know. And the other thing is also a very tiring interview process. So all that whiteboarding challenges, 5 stages of interviews, IQ testing, math testing. These are kind of things I've heard from my peers as well from General Assembly, right? This is what they have gone through. And the last and final thing is holding big tech in such high esteem. I'm not saying that they're not capable designers, but I think sometimes there is an overemphasis on like where you used to work at. But don't tell me where you used to work at. Tell me what you are passionate about. I think I would like to hear about that a bit more. Yeah, so your value should not be defined by which famous company you worked at, I think. And that is it from me. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for your talk, Rachel. I really enjoyed hearing your experience here.
Thank you.
Get some water, take a rest for a bit, and then we'll move on to the next speaker. Chris, you're up.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. Give me 1 second. I'll share my screen. Take it over. Can you guys see the screen now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Perfect. So, hi, my name is Christian, and today I'm going to walk you through my unsmooth transition into UX design. Basically, let's talk a little bit about my backstory, the transition itself from suffering a severe identity crisis to becoming, well, a UX practitioner, and essentially just a reflection of my backstory, how my education, working experience, upbringing kind of helped me become a better designer. hopefully a better person too. So my little backstory is actually pretty short. It's kind of sad that a backstory fits in 1 minute and 30 seconds, but I'm a design lead at LF Labs here in Singapore. My BA says that I'm an Orientalist, which is supposedly a thing. I majored in Jewish studies, and yeah, I'm a big fan of cats. And over the past 5 years, I've actually been working as a UX designer with a lot of corporate clients across Asia, in China, in the Philippines, in Singapore, and Thailand. But unlike many of my colleagues, I've actually never went to a design school, never purchased a design course, never attended a masterclass until very recently. So my story of becoming a UX designer is slightly different and a little bit more complicated, but although some of the lessons that I sort of put together may sound a little obvious to some of you here, some may think that it's like too painfully obvious for everyone, but I kind of like to think that the most precious gems actually hide in plain sight. So if some of you are thinking about transitioning or in the middle of that transitioning, hopefully it would help someone avoid the same mistakes I've made. So without further ado, a short story of my transition, which kind of began with my parents and their obsession with languages. So they themselves were pretty hardworking people and didn't really have time. So since they were busy, they kind of forced me into it. And on graduating from high school, I actually knew nothing but languages. I would spend hours and hours just drilling that. So that kind of posed the first question: what was I going to do next? But at the same time, it gave me the first valuable life lesson, lesson 0, pick up a language or a couple. Languages do open doors. It turns out, at least it did open the door for me over here. So let's rewind back. I'm 15. I'm basically facing this biggest challenge of my life. What do I do next? So I've got the setup. I'm a big fan of sci-fi. I published my first short story when I was 13. When I was 15, I started working for a local newspaper, started publishing works there. I was singing for a band everywhere, nightclubs, jams, all of it. So I'm all creative, I'm all burning, I'm all excited. Yeah, I mean, my mom was like, you're gonna be an Orientalist. That was kind of obvious to them. I don't really know why. And I don't really know where this idea stems from. But the only thing I knew that I was going to spend the next 4 years basically drilling through that. Didn't really choose the language. That's how the system worked at the time. Didn't really know what I was doing there either. You know, I was just sitting there, spending 8 hours a day deciphering those ancient scripts, learning hundreds of words by heart, day by day. And that is where I learned my first valuable lesson of today. Sorry. That is lesson number 1. Make sure you know that what you do is actually what you want to do, and make sure that it is you who wants to do that. So I was kind of depressed, but at least, hey, there's always a silver lining. I got to travel. So before I turned 20, I actually went abroad once or twice, a couple of weeks in total. But this time I was 20, I was alone, and I spoke the language. So can you imagine the thrill when you land in a foreign country? You're all excited, you abandon your bubble, you go out and you have fun. And more than that, you actually learn of a foreign culture, you meet the new people, you go to the street, whether you go to Palestine, as see here, I went to China, I traveled all across Israel. That was real fun. But beside the fun part, actually made it into a second life lesson. Never stay put, never allow yourself to crystallize in one place, because once you do, there's no turning back. You're not going to grow, you're not going to allow yourself to grow. So do it virtually, do it in real life, however you want to do it nonetheless. Don't let yourself sit there and do nothing. So here I was, 20, really doing nothing, but already outside this bubble. So what I was going to do, well, I had a plan. I came back a man with a plan, and I kind of recalled that a few years ago, I actually picked up a few things. I picked up guitar and I picked up HTML. When I was 15, I built the first website for my band. And a little later, in the university, I actually built and launched a website for our student council and even designed their logo. Really ashamed of it now, but it was really cool. So when I was around 17 or so, my friend came over and said that he wanted to launch an e-shop. I didn't really know what that was. And we started building it slowly, steadily, didn't really sell much. But that was the first time I actually picked up some front-end skills, learned some JavaScript. And a couple years later, I was already making a living off building those small websites. So my friend would just go out, find us clients, the small businesses, people who just wanted a blog or something. I did the heavy lifting, but that kind of taught me a lot. In the meantime, I didn't really know what I was doing with that, but I was writing a thesis. It was titled something like The History of Development of the Israeli Police. And I decided that I was going to wow everyone in the audience, presentation. I decided to put together a PPT. Since it was quite boring just to put out the text, I decided to illustrate something. So I took some stock illustrations and I started playing around with Illustrator. So you see the result of it here. The man is the original illustrator, the woman is not, but hey, you got to start somewhere, you know, first thing always gonna be bad. But at the same time, my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, she bought this book, Design in Form by Johannes Eden. It's got a slightly different cover, but that was the first design book that I ever read. And it kind of struck me there. I knew that I was going to be a designer the moment I closed this book. And this is where my third and probably most valuable lesson of the day comes up. Being open to new things, even if you're not intending on using them, is what actually drives you. So I didn't know that at the time, but that was the door that opened in front of me. So I decided to go and stay with my family in China for a while. I found a job there at a small creative agency as a developer. I already had this little background and some portfolio that I quickly put together overnight. And I straight away asked them if they could teach me to be a designer. They had a few designers in-house. I still keep in touch with all of them. And they kind of did push me so much so that in a couple of years, I actually moved to Singapore. I decided that I was going to retire from front end. I didn't really do a great job. And I decided to focus on becoming a UX designer, which sort of led me to where I am right now. At the same time, there's always a couple of things that I picked up while working as a teacher. That's the thing that I kind of missed out of my talk. You know, when you've got a BA in Oriental Studies, there's not much you can do. And best thing I could figure out was to work as a teacher. At one point in Shanghai, in a moment of desperation, I even landed a job as a history and geography teacher at a Russian consulate school. That was kind of cool, but most valuably, I sort of realized that teachers and designers actually do have a lot in common. Just to head up the previous talk, Rachel's talk, right? Designers and teachers both have to be extremely patient, right? They have to face those unpleasant clients, really weird, unusual requests. They have to always come prepared. They have to bring visual aids, like get really creative, engage, entertain. Most importantly, they have to, you know, learn and empower to learn, which to me means that you have to always learn yourself. The thing is that you get to that point when you realize that there is never enough. You cannot know everything. And once you convince yourself that you don't know anything, you actually get much better at what you do. Another thing that working as a history teacher taught me, and being into history that much, was, you know, as wise men put it, one who knows their past can foresee their future. And that is something that I like to tell my students before, that all the greatest achievements, including designs, are built on the foundation of past accomplishments, right? So when you know the history of design, when you learn from the great past, when you follow the big achievements, analyze the downfalls, it kind of forges you as a good designer, gives you this ultimate weapon. So knowing and embracing your history is essential, no matter what you do. It could be digital design, it could be UX, it could be research. Still have to know and love it. And just to sum it all up, right? I kind of understand that only now, I'm getting older, settling down. Can I say that I actually found like my true path? And the only way I know that it's mine this time is because I'm restless. Like, seriously, I spent so much money on books, education materials, videos. I write articles. I do those talks, right? I got caught up in my imposter syndrome, and I kind of decided that it was a really good time to finally bridge this gap and get this formally educated plank on my CV. So I applied a few months ago, and I got admitted in the university. So tomorrow I officially become a UX master's student at Falmouth University. So I kind of feel like that is when I can truly say that, well, I enjoy what I do, right? And that is my most important lesson of the day. Never rest until you've found what brings you joy, and never rest afterwards. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Chris. It's been very inspiring to hear all these talks from all the speakers today. And yeah, I do want to go through some questions that the audience have placed. So let me share my screen right now so we can see all the questions that people have asked in Pigeonhole. Okay, so yeah, a lot of great questions. Okay, let's actually start with this one. What are some green flags to look out for when applying to a company? And I think like maybe Rachel or Desiree could answer this one, since I guess like either one of you have most recently interviewed.
I can give one short answer, then maybe Desiree can answer after. I think the green flags, I think it's going to sound very generic, but one of the major green flags is that, do you honestly like working with them? Because like, you have done your whiteboarding challenge, and then do you like the company? Do you trust that their design process is well thought through? Are designs given enough thought in the upstream process? Or is it like a PM driven company? Because that's some things you can ask yourself. Yeah. I mean, don't ask them directly, but try to ascertain for yourself in the interview by asking them questions about it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think just adding on to what Rachel said, I usually look out for the team members first, and it always happens as part of the interview, you're going to meet the team members anyway. So just see, like, are they, very strict people? Do they follow like hierarchy, that kind of thing, or are they just chill, talking? In my last interview, I talked, half of it was talking about diving and ang paos. So it's truly like it has to flow naturally, and that's when you kind of feel when it feels right. It's like buying a house. I don't know,
Yeah.
looking at houses or looking at, I don't know. Yeah, it just feels right.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, it's very important, right? You kind of want to feel like at home.
Yes.
Yeah. Since you spend 12 hours of a day there, you might as well feel at home.
Okay. Maybe this is a question Chris can answer.
Yeah.
As the UX scene is getting more saturated, what are some ways to tell a great junior designer apart from a good junior designer?
Never, ever post two pictures, one side another, and ask for feedback on LinkedIn, putting a title like which UI is better. That will literally put you on top of all of them. But that's probably my burning topic. Okay. Seriously, on that note, there is a big competition, right? There's always been competition in the design field. A great junior designer is not someone who's got 100 projects in their portfolio. It's not someone who's actually got a lot of works or a lot of, like formal education or something. Great designer at any stage is someone who focuses on problems. Most importantly, problem solving, right? It's someone who can demonstrate that they can essentially identify those problems and they can show how they solve it, even if they don't know the proper tools. They don't have at their disposal all the canvases and all the knowledge that more seasoned designers would have. They still have this mindset of getting from the problem statement to the solution that they propose through the essentially design thinking process. So if you want to stand out, show one project, spend enough time on that. And again, reiterate, never do that thing on LinkedIn that I'm just begging you never do that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Yeah, the LinkedIn thing, it's I see it quite a lot, and it never really gives any kind of actual insight. So I kind of agree with Chris there. Yeah, thanks for answering that question, and I hope that helps people here as well.
And maybe I can add in as a junior designer too. So one of the things I remember in my interviews when I'm getting feedback, right, is how the interviewers, one thing that interviewers spot between the junior designers, right, especially those that come from boot camps, is that they kind of think that your thinking is very boxed in. So one of the ways that I had to try and differentiate myself is to try and show the non-linear ways of thinking. That helps.
Yeah.
Yes, I think a great junior designer, apart from a good junior designer, apart from the UI type of things, I do believe that walking through being able to logically put everything into a flow and lay it out and just explain it easily to people. I feel like that's one of the things that sets people apart, because you can go on an hour talking about something that someone explains in a minute. So yeah, I feel like that's one of the key things for me, at least, when I see a great versus good designer.
Yes, communication is definitely key here. Yeah, thanks everyone. Okay. Wow. Okay, what are some tips for someone who's self-taught but would like to build a career in UX design with no prior experience? So definitely a great question for all three of you. Who wants to start?
I'm definitely not self-taught though. I mean, I went to GA. I mean, I taught myself after GA, but I don't think that counts.
Still, what helped?
Talk to people. I feel like the community we have here is super open, and I feel like if you get onto Discord, not selling anything here, but really just talk to people. You'll find often that people really want to help more often than you think. And you might even, they might know somebody who has a job opening and things like that. You can just go and try out for an interview as well, and then see where things go from there.
Yeah, I agree with Desiree. Definitely go for interviews, see how you talk to people. Yeah, use it as practice.
Practice, yeah.
Oh, and a portfolio, build a good one.
What helps to build a good portfolio?
You need to be familiar with how to really sell a problem and a solution together. That's one thing. But the other thing that I would say is, for me, right, the thing that I think really helped me set me apart from the people that like me who are mid-career switchers that have zero knowledge, is that I really made sure to really show how I failed too. So I don't know why this has worked for me, but all my interviews I've always explained how I failed in certain projects, how I failed in certain problems, and how I failed in this solution and what I learned from it. So I think being reflective also kind of convinces people that, especially if you have no background, right, that at least you are willing to learn, which is what Christian said a lot. He keeps talking about how he really values learning and stuff. And actually, I think that's 100% true. You really need to like really love and continually learn as a UX designer.
Definitely. Chris, do you have anything to add to that?
On a practical side, there's always a good advice I can give, right? Beside trying to find a mentor, which is actually very important. And the earlier you do that, the better. Sometimes people underestimate the importance of someone who can actually hold your hand and just guide you through the experience. Trust me, getting hit by a car is fun, but when someone tells you that you shouldn't be crossing on a red light, yeah, that's probably more valuable, right? But on a practical note, right, if you don't have a prior experience, right, which you probably do, you just don't know about it, right? I'm doing those design thinking workshops a lot, and I tell people who always ask me like, why do I need design thinking? I say, it's not because you want to design something. It's because design is actually not putting something beautiful together. It's thinking, most importantly, than design. But on a practical note, find something that irritates you a lot, like something that is so incredibly painful that, I don't know, iOS 14, and they removed the, when you select the numbers on the alarm, they removed the thingy and they basically just made it into numerical input. I forgot how it's called, revolver things. Why did they do this and how did they solve it? That is basically your design thinking, but find something for you that gives you a lot of pain and try to find a way to solve it, whether it's digital through digital or it's something in the real life, and you will get your first experience right away and find yourself someone who can help you build a strong presence everywhere, including, digital.
Yeah, great tip, Chris. Okay, let's mark this one as answered. We kind of already spoke a bit about portfolio building. So are there any courses you'd recommend to learn UX? So Chris, you just signed up for a master course. How did you choose that one, and what were other courses at your consideration?
Okay, yeah, I won't be long, but I'll try to squeeze it in. It took me a year to actually just find a place where I'd want to land. I've actually got a very big presentation I shared with our CEO and my immediate boss. It's actually been very helpful this entire journey. I decided to break it into like 3 categories, one of which just went straight into the garbage bin, which is Coursera, Udemy, and all that. They are not really likely to give you anything outside a very basic understanding of what design is, which you can find in books. There's so many great design books out there, and some of them you can get for free. Some of them you'd pay basically the same amount of money, right? And they would give a very comprehensive overview and would save you from having to post on Twitter of how you got another badge from Coursera. I'm not underestimating that. I'm just saying that there's a lot of practical aspect to reading that you underestimate. General Assembly, I don't really know. I think I'm looking at the price. I'm terrified, and I just move along. Again, I'm not a big fan of certificates for the sake of certificates. I want to have like comprehensive overview of what the course is and how it can be applied further. Now, in my case, I chose masters from an actual UK university, which is taught online pretty much like everything else these days. But unlike others, I looked at, yes, the name of the university. I looked at the curriculum more than I did the name, and I looked at how they apply it to distance learning and how they make it comfortable and how they find this middle ground between practical approach and theoretical, because you have to do a lot of theory there. You have to write reflective journaling, you have to write papers, for God's sake. So I wouldn't recommend anything if you're getting enough practice, but if you're not, do your research, put together 50 names, and I guarantee you it will take you half an hour just to pick the right one. as long as you've got your 50 in the list. Hope that helps.
Sean, may I also interject for this?
Yes,
So
for
as
sure.
as a general assembly grad, right? I would say, would this be sufficient to land a job in UX? And I think the answer is no. I would say that there are some of my peers who still don't have a job in UX, and they've been trying at it for a year. I'm not saying that they're bad. In fact, I would say in the course, some of them were actually way better than me at design. It's not enough to I would say that a lot of it, General Assembly was $4,000 spent on making friends, which I could have done in Friends of Figma or other Telegram groups. So I would say that it was helpful in getting the basics. So I agree with Christian. Coursera and Udemy also does the same thing. They give you the basics. But for General Assembly, right, I would say like, unless they start doing that career fair thing again, that seems to be the only thing worth it. Because that allows you to practice your elevator pitch and talk to startups and shit. But that not happening now in the pandemic. So I wouldn't, I say that was the thing that got me into GA, but it didn't happen for me because my class was in 2020. Yeah.
Yeah, I also want to add on a point because I also went to GA mid-career. Yeah, I spent that money and I was like, oh my God, this is like a gym membership. Like, I feel like I don't know if you're able to balance studying and working, try to. It's really what you make of the experience. So like what Rachel said, it's really about making friends. I joined the Singapore one, but because of the pandemic, they brought it online and opened it worldwide. So it was a class of worldwide people. And I could see people just, not putting in effort, but in the end, they still got a certificate. So I was like, what's this? But, like I put in like 5 hours every night, like trying to make this great thing for my portfolio. And actually, it helped. Like it helps if you want to help yourself.
Yes.
So you really have to put in and make sure that you understand and take away properly because the instructors are good.
Yes.
Yeah, they're good, but I would just say don't expect a job, to land immediately after you graduate from General Assembly, things like that. Also been to NNG and they are very theoretical. So I felt very overwhelmed with all this information that I couldn't practice. But I feel like practice that in your practice portfolio if you can, and then just talk through the same things when you try and interview for a job.
Yeah.
I will also say that like the whole self-made brand, I'm not self-made, so like I can't carry that brand, but I think it has served a few people quite well. Like the whole idea that I self-made and I went for a hackathon, I volunteered and worked cross-functionally, I designed for an open source software, that sort of thing seems to work for some people better. And whenever I sent in my application as a GA student, a lot of my interviews come in asking me like, okay, can you think out of the box? And I'm like, I can. Yeah. So there's a bit of a bias against us, I feel, sometimes. And I wish I knew that before I went to GA.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely like a challenging perception, I guess. And how was that then for you, Desiree? Did you experience what kind of biases?
Yeah, I do feel like it's I wouldn't call it the Harvard of, but if people recognize it immediately, it's like Nike, you know what they do, like they associate brands here and there. So I guess because nobody else has kind of taken over in terms of marketing their brand, GA remains the most known for now. But yeah, it's not the Harvard of UX. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so let's see. We've already answered the portfolio a little bit. Career progression, I think the answer was already in the comments. So let's go to this one. As a career switcher, is it better to do an internship before getting a full-time job? How likely will companies recruit someone with no experience? I guess, Chris, you've hired people, right? No? Yeah?
Yeah, I'm interviewing people for LF every now and again. Likely companies recruit someone. So I never actually never seen an intern without some experience at least. The difference between an intern and a junior designer in this case is, yeah, competency, familiarity with the tools, knowledge, practice, mostly practice. But again, if you don't have the experience, you will need to take some time picking it up, right? If the company takes you from ground up, and well, that's a good luck, right? Even for an internship. And I'm not biased against people with no experience. What I'm saying is, you will need to put together a project, even if it's one, even if it's something that you can showcase. Trust me, for an internship, no one will be asking for anything over the moon, right? Nobody's going to be expecting anything out of you other than that you are capable of showcasing how you think. That's all we want to know. But I don't know. That would be my advice, I think.
Yeah, I guess like I can also chip in a little bit here, right? So I've hired quite a few people as well, and I do see also a lot of profiles, people coming from say GA, and yes, I guess like from my perspective, I do think it's better if you have some kind of project in your portfolio that you can talk about, can go through, and like Chris said, like you really need to be able to explain your thinking, your process, and I do think that that will help improve your chances of finding a job. It's very rare to land a job without any kind of practical experience. It's not impossible, like Chris said as well, but it's the very only unlikely case, right? Yeah, I do think, yeah, I guess like both Chris and I do think it's very important that you do demonstrate some practical experience.
When you say practical experience, do you mean
Yeah.
like on the job experience, like in a real startup or real tech team?
For a permanent role, it would be, even for a junior role, like if you had done an internship before, that gives you a leg up, right? And if you're a starter, you're gonna compete with people who have done an internship, and that's what people are gonna look at, right? Like, okay, hey, if I have person A and person B, they have done the same thing, but person A has done a practical internship, most likely the hiring managers would look at, would invite person A faster than person B. So it's not impossible, because there are also companies who have, I would say, bandwidth and actual really junior roles open, where if they can see that you have done a certain degree, more design related degree, that they might be more comfortable in hiring those straight out of university. But that's definitely not for all the cases. Yeah.
True.
Okay. So yeah, practical experience, I guess, is key here. Getting some, either if it's like your own fictional project to build up your portfolio, or some actual professional experience that definitely gives you some leg up in a way. Okay, would you say that working in UX is fast paced? Is there a work-life balance? I think Rachel, you already briefly talked about it. You want to go a little bit deeper?
Oh, but it's also just my experience, right? It could be that I'm just like really slow with my work, you know? So I'm pretty junior. But I remember, Shirley, the other day we were also talking, and you also worked until like 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. in the morning. I remember you were pretty tired that day.
Yeah, I had a tough week that week.
Yeah. I think it is fast paced.
Yeah.
But most of Singapore's jobs are fast paced, so you might as well pick the one that's fun and you like. with chill
Yeah.
people.
Desiree,
Depends on
how's
that.
your work life?
I feel like it depends on the individual. Like, banks are comparatively a pretty chill place. People knock off at 5, but I'm still gonna work after this. It really depends, like how much you want to push yourself in the company, right? I do feel like yes, maybe like there are certain industries that are more fast-paced. Definitely, tech is very fast. Things that require other people's getting things out to other people really quickly. Definitely, it's going to be fast-paced, but I feel like this can be all discerned. It's just based on industry currently. So I've worked in consulting as well, and I didn't, I just don't sleep for 3 days, that kind of thing. Maybe sometimes, eat meals when there's meetings. That's the only time I can eat. Not something that I would recommend, but is it that fast paced? Is it, is a bank fast paced compared to that? No, it's not, but it might be fast paced compared to another industry. So it's all relative. I think it really depends on what industry you're aiming for and how you prioritize your time.
It's true.
Yeah.
I definitely don't prioritize my time. I think like when I was both a teacher and a designer, right? I put in the extra hours because I really wanted my work to be good. But not like perfect, but I really wanted something that I was proud of. Yeah. And maybe it's because I'm pretty junior, so I'm not, that good yet. So that's why I put in the extra hours to make sure that it's something that I'm happy to ship out.
Isn't it also then a little bit of investing in your own career then?
Yeah.
Yeah. How's it for you, Chris, at Aleph? How's your work-life balance?
Why is he smiling?
I guess instead of answering directly, I would just say if you really want to pick up on a lot of things really fast, completely forget about personal life and basically dedicate 125% of your time and soul to design, startup is the place for you to work at, especially when there's not enough people, not enough hands.
Yeah.
In my case, it's a little different. I never know, honestly. I used to work with the clients that had the pretty strict 9 to 5 policy. I mean, it wasn't really imposed, but people would not really stay late unless they absolutely had to, and they got the job done. So it was pretty okay. And then sometimes you do have to work over the weekend and to help late at night because there's a presentation that you need to submit by yesterday, right? I just see that the less mature the company is, the more things you have to carry on your shoulder, the more disrupted the balance will be. UX in general is a very fast-paced industry, so don't expect to just be sitting around and doing nothing. If you're doing nothing, you're probably doing something wrong, most likely. I don't know. And I'm not advocating for overtime. Everyone who knows me know that I hate overtime just as anything else in this life, but still you'd have to do that every now and then.
Yeah. Coming from the Netherlands, I definitely don't like overtime. But yeah, sometimes you have these presentation moments and you still have to get something in a certain quality ready. So yeah. But I do think I hope most of us do have a pretty okay-ish work-life balance and we're not working for slave drivers. Okay, let's see. Are there any general tips to make use of our current working experience to help our transition into design? So Desiree, like how was your past working experience helpful into your transition into design?
I feel like as I progressed through each job, I learned how to speak and communicate with people better. And I just found like the key to all this is really just communicating your ideas. Most of it, it's not, okay, yes, one part of it is how well you design, right? But you get better at that on your own. You need other people around you in UX especially. And I found that between graphic designer and UX designer, I was doing a lot more talking. somehow, managing a lot more people, and there's suddenly a whole bunch of developers involved that you have to talk with, things like that. So I just feel like it depends on what your current working experience is. If it's more towards design, you already kind of have a foot into the industry. If it's not, you might have to, pick something up either, through volunteering for another project or something. But the key point is to just start getting your foot into interviews. I can't stress this enough. I really went for a lot of interviews like over the past 10 years. I think more than 400 over already at this point. So just go and find out what happens in the industry, because it's changing as well. It's so fast. Figma didn't exist before Sketch, so I've had to relearn things as well. So all these things kind of come and go, but you need to understand the trends as well in the industry. So just keep an ear out and an eye out, and hopefully that will help you transition a bit more.
Yeah, definitely good, helpful tip. Rachel, do you have any tips to your presentation that you want to give the audience?
I guess also just take stock of your own soft skills. So I came from something that's completely zero, and on the surface it seemed unrelated to design, but I had to really think deep, and think about okay, why does this feel familiar? And then I thought about it, and then I realized that, a lot of things, actually, I would say that a lot of jobs I'm going to go on a limb and generalize, but I would say that a lot of jobs require design thinking anyway. I think that design thinking, as Christian has said, is just a way of thinking. And I maybe didn't realize it, but I was kind of already using it in my previous job. So I would say though, but when I was doing the interviews, right, I made sure not to talk too much about my previous experience. I tried to focus more on the projects I was doing instead. So I would say that I can't help you with how to make use of your current working experience. I'm not sure what it is. I mean, if it's something like Desiree said that's related to design, or if you're already in computer science, then yeah, you're good. But if you're in something like mine, where it was completely unrelated, I would say that even I have no idea how to make use of my current working experience to help transition into the design. And also, what really helped about my previous working experience was that before I worked in the startup, right? I also worked in a company in the Lifelong Learning Institute as a trainer. And what helped, right, was that the startup founder was university friends with one of my colleagues there, and the colleague there vouched for me. So it was more like a network thing. So that's how my previous roles helped me get a role in the startup, not so much the experience. Yep.
Oh, yeah. And Chris, do you have maybe one tip?
Well, my entire talk was basically about that your previous life, regardless of what recruiters tell you, and they love to say, don't include in the CV anything that is not related to your work or the one that you're applying for. Don't listen. Everything actually counts. Every tiny experience can build up to something big. There's a lot of things you might have done before without even realizing that. So learn to reflect. Start journaling, maybe. Try to look back at what you've done, what you were good at some point, what you have accomplished before, and have to be formal badges. Actually, reflective journaling is very good practice. So everything that you did before is valid and valuable. Just find a way to use it, and don't be ashamed of it, even if you were a history teacher at a Russian consulate school. I wasn't a good teacher.
Thank you so much for the tips. Okay, I know that we already quite a bit over time than we actually scheduled. So I do want to conclude the Q&A here with these tips. I hope these are going to be very helpful for everyone who's interested in transitioning into UX and this whole session itself. And let me now share. Oh. Okay. Let me just go to my Figma. So as we are nearing the end of our session, I do want to point out, as usual, in the Figma file that Chloe has shared earlier during the session, we also have collected some job openings. So everyone can take a look there. And if you also have any job openings, please help the community here and add them in here. So that's one thing we've been doing for a while now, and hopefully that can help you as well. And yeah, with that, I want to, well, hopefully that will help everyone. So thanks, Chloe, for collecting all of these. And let's see what else. So Chloe, can you share the feedback link? Okay, I see you already shared it. So Chloe has sent this feedback link in our chat. Please let us know what you think and what other topics or speakers you want to hear from us for the next sessions. And with that, also want to promote our Discord. Chloe, can you also send our Discord chat? Yeah. So
Sure.
lastly, we have a Discord channel. Some of you might have heard of it already and have joined already. So we do have quite a few things going on there. We have some monthly casual cozy hangouts, game nights. So outside of the events, if you want to feel like you need some support or anything, join our Discord. There are great people there. Well, everyone here who's speaking has, I think, been there as well. And a lot of people who are active in the chat today as well have been really, really supportive there. So if you need anything, please join us there as well. And with that, I really want to thank everyone for joining our event today. Thanks, Desiree, Rachel, Chris, for such a great talk, inspiring talk, and I hope that can motivate everyone to overcome their struggles that they are facing right now when they are trying to transition into UX. And thanks for Sam and Chloe for all the great work also behind the scenes and setting up the interactive session. So thanks everyone, and till next time.
Thank you,
See you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Happy
Thank you,
Mid-Autumn
everyone.
Festival.
Cheers, guys. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you all.